I'm Rob Hanson. I live in eastern North Carolina. I shoot Nikon, aperture. Sorry, Brian. And do primarily HDR work. I really enjoy landscapes, unusual events, anything but weddings and babies, pretty much, I think. So.
Very good. Heath?
Hey, I'm Heath O'Fee. I'm from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I think I'm the lone Canadian here today. Same as Rob. Primarily, I shoot HDRs. Love landscapes, architecture. Recently gotten into a little bit of urbex. That's about it.
And Pat?
Hello, I'm Pat O'Brien. I shoot a lot of HDR. Recently, I've been transitioning more into portraits, weddings, families, and but that's about it as well.
And Brian?
Hey, I'm Brian Matiash. I'm also into HDR and all that other good stuff. I'm not even sure what to say.
I think you did better last week.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, just mention week 1 and week 2, Scott.
It's been a long day.
All right,
Take the
take
best
two.
of
Take two.
Stay in school and don't do drugs.
Just say no.
That's the voice of experience talking.
I think you need to redo that one over again.
But beer's okay.
Oh, yeah. It's cracking up.
It's a very long day. All right, so wait, we're just doing intros. My name is.
Cut him off. Cut him off. He's done.
Oh, man.
Anyone else can intro me. I'm pretty loopy right now. It's that guy from that email earlier just got me going.
I have some crazy thing going on right now. It's really interesting seeing the discussion that's happening with the video. It's crazy.
Well, that's what happens, Jacob, when you steal your neighbor's Wi-Fi. You can't really get the great.
Spoiled.
Alright. Hey, John, your turn.
Okay. My name is John Milleker. I'm a photographer based in Baltimore, Maryland. While digital can't be beat for client shooting, my real passion is film work, darkroom work, and alternative processes.
Great. And Bob?
Hi, I'm not Brian Matiash.
Hi, not Brian.
I'm Bob Lussier, Boston area photographer. I shoot a lot of HDR, like a lot of the other guys. I shot film and digital about 30 years ago film and darkroom about 30 years ago in college. So I know where John's coming from. That's great stuff. I currently do a lot of photography in the Mills in the Lawrence area along the Merrimack River, a lot of indoor urbex stuff. That's about it.
Jacob?
Lucky last. So my name is Kivowitz. I'm from Australia, but now I live in Seattle, Washington. And I didn't really start getting into photography until I moved to the States. I like to shoot anything and everything. For me, it's about sharing the way I see the world, and it's not necessarily tied to a particular subject or a particular processing style. It's more about my perspective on things, and as such, I enjoy shooting all sorts of stuff and talking about it on my blog and on my website.
Great. And I am also not Brian Matiash. I'm Scott Wyden Kivowitz, and I'm from New Jersey. And I'm very similar to Jacob. I shoot basically whatever comes from the heart, whatever job comes my way. I'll whether it's portraits or some sort of real estate or landscape, anything like that. I'll shoot. But I love to shoot landscapes. It's definitely my biggest passion is landscapes, whether it's HDR or just single exposure landscapes. Yeah, that's about it. So this is the crew from episode 1 of Talk Imagery.
Well, Scott, you had mentioned talking about in-camera versus Photoshop, but
Right.
you got. Well, I know John, you're film mostly, right?
That's usually just for personal, for clients. I can't. They're not going to pay for that, so I'd shoot digital a lot with that.
Hmm. I'm just thinking though, we have a lot of HDR people here, so I think saying Photoshop is probably a given. Although I know that the picture really starts from the moment you shoot it. And lately, I've been trying my best to get the best composition possible. Thanks to a lot of advice that Brian comes out with. Used to be I just sort of like go out there and see what I could get, but now I really try to spend more time thinking about that so that I have less to do in post. But I think as primarily HDR photographers here, you just can't get away from Photoshop. So when you say in camera or Photoshop, it's really both.
Right.
So I don't know where
Yeah,
you
I don't
want to take
think
it
it's
from there.
I'm not really keen on. Who was just saying something?
I've got to disagree with that. I'm doing most of my things in Lightroom. If I color balance and nail exposure, all I need is a little bit of rotation, adjustment, and crop, and Lightroom, and I can get through most of my catalog in no time at all.
Yeah, I'm finding that most of my post production is done in Lightroom. Not necessarily with the HDR stuff, because it does need a lot more than just Lightroom, but with everything else, I'm spending most of my time in Lightroom, whether it's portraits or just regular landscapes, product shots, anything like that. I'm probably 90 to 95% of the time in Lightroom. And like I said, with HDR stuff, I'm going into Photoshop more, but it's sort of inevitable to use the plugins that are available for Photoshop. But there are some plugins that are going to be available for Lightroom soon enough. That might change too. So, but yeah, that's mine. Anyone else?
Am I the only aperture user amongst this group?
No, I use Aperture. Hey, Brian, this is your cue to go like this now.
I have to foster all applications now officially.
Yes, you do.
Even though I've been begging Jacob to move to Lightroom, but he won't.
What about Bibble? Isn't there a bunch a whole group of people that use Bibble, or isn't that what it's called?
Yeah, there's Bibble, there's Photo Mechanic, there are a few of them.
Photo Mechanic's pretty popular, I think.
Yeah, what's his Arius uses that.
Yep.
Anyone uses the GIMP? It's free.
It is free. What about you, Heath?
I'm a Lightroom user.
Yep. And do you find yourself spending more time in camera, Photoshop, or Lightroom?
Well, I'm in the same boat as Rob. I think that, no matter how much post-processing you do to any photograph, it all begins in camera. It all begins with decomposition. So, unless you're constantly performing, super aggressive crops on your photos, I think for me, composition is key in camera. And obviously for shooting HDR in camera, you're always going to be checking your histograms, which is a given.
Right.
But most of my heavy lifting goes on in Photoshop for sure.
Yep. Yeah, in camera, there's a lot of things that you can do in Photoshop and Lightroom and whatnot to fix your crop and add more depth to the photo. But for me, it does. It's more of a challenge to get what you want in the camera. I did do a photo recently. I did a video showing me reprocessing a photo I took at the Statue of Liberty, and I added some. I used the on-one focal point in order to add more depth and that little bit of a tilt shift look. But at the time I didn't have that lens with me, so I couldn't do it. But so there are times when having the ability to do it comes in handy. But it would have been nice to have created that same effect before I even got it to the computer. So, what about you, Bob?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as most everybody else. In camera, I always try to make sure that the composition is dead on. I try and make sure that my horizon line is straight and my vertical lines are vertical. and post-process, and that the exposure is on. Even in HDR, I want to make sure I cover the whole range. So, as Brian knows, I'll often be sitting there shooting, three sets of brackets of the same scene to make sure I cover the range and make sure that my base exposure is could pass for a good shot. But I do have a lot of fun with post-processing as well. Obviously, with HDR, it's a lot of work in Photoshop, Photomatics, and the On1 plugin suite. But I do spend a lot of time.
Bunch of sycophants.
On non-HDR stuff, I'll spend a lot of time, some time on curve adjustments. And I'll kind of split my time. Sometimes I find myself jumping into Photoshop because I just use it so much, and I forget that Lightroom has a lot of that capability too. So I've been trying to work more in Lightroom on the curve adjustments as well. So that's it. I mean,
What was that?
I have no idea.
Excuse
I
me.
think that was Pat.
No, I'd have to agree with you, Bob. I think I just talked over Bob. I find the same thing going on. I do so much work in Photoshop that I almost forget that Aperture has, a lot of those capabilities, and I haven't really exploited that. I think Bob's on the right track to go back into Lightroom or Aperture and figure out more about what it can do.
Pat, you're a little frozen for me for some reason, but do you wanna?
He's like that naturally.
As Brian is well aware, I definitely am having a hard time adjusting to Lightroom. I have it, but I don't know much about it.
Aperture is your friend.
Well, I'm on a Windows machine, so I guess nothing is really my friend.
Mac OS is your friend.
Yeah.
Come to the dark side.
I believe in doing everything in camera. You have all of those megapixels, and you try to want to use as much as you can in camera, is my belief. Get your horizon straight, your vertical straight, because the more you crop, the more you degrade your photo, is the belief that I have. So get it all straight in camera, and then do your fine-tuning. For me, it's Photoshop, although I have to remember that I do have Lightroom installed, and it can do a lot of what Photoshop does for me. So it's an adjustment that I'm still trying to work towards.
Good. Anyone else have anything to add? No?
I do have one thing to say about
Okay.
in-camera stuff, I guess, is that one thing that I found when I shot with my D60 compared to the D700 is the coverage that you have in the viewfinder is not 100%. So often when you try and compose perfectly what you're seeing through the viewfinder, there are little extra things that creep in and corrupt your image. So that's sort of one thing I don't have to be as careful with my D700.
Yeah, and actually I received an email this week from someone asking why so many of us use live view when we're shooting.
That's why.
And I explained to him why, that was one of the reasons, and I also mentioned how with the tilt shift lens, it actually is easier to get your focus, using live view as well. So for anyone who's watching and is wondering why many photographers use live view, and I'll be the first one to admit that when live view first came out, I was really against it. I just didn't see a purpose for it. But now that I'm using it so much, it is extremely, extremely helpful. So for anyone out there that's watching that wants to know why we use live view, it's because, or the viewfinders, and even on the D700, it's not 100%. I think it's...
No, it's like 98
yeah,
or something.
It's
close to. It's not 100 though.
Yeah, but for
That's it. I'm switching to Canon.
for composition, for focus, the live view really does come in handy and make it a little bit easier for the photographer. But that is if you're on a tripod. If you're hand holding, live view doesn't really help too much for me, at least. So, I actually had a question for John. John is our film lover, and John, have you ever tried to, without using any presets or anything, have you ever tried to recreate a film photo that you've taken but digitally? I'm talking like from composition to actual output.
Well, it's interesting.
It's a good question.
The closest I've seen was I think it's alien skin exposure, and they do a really good job at actually emulating a couple film emulsions and the grains and everything. So that can kind of get you started. Of course, nothing in digital is going to get you the exposure latitude that a black and white negative will get you. Minus doing HDR, but you can get pretty close. And I guess for film shooters, seeing all this hipstamatic things and Instagrams and things like that kind of bugs you every once in a while, because film is so easy to get into and so easy to develop yourself. Some of the labs, I know Adorama does it, and I believe it's Digital Silver. They will actually print. They will actually do the back end and take your digital image, and actually print it onto real silver photo paper for you. So that's about as close as I think you can get. I have been doing some experiments with using a hacked monitor with an LCD as a digital negative, basically. But unfortunately, the dot pitch of the monitors just doesn't really add well to the process.
Nice.
Oh, Pat came back.
Hi, Pat.
Now,
You
Scott,
got fit for a bit, mate.
Pat's back. I have a question for you, Scott. For the live view on the Nikon, I know on the 50D Canon, I can actually zoom in 5-10 times, and that really helps to nail manual focus if I'm doing macro work or tripod work. And I'm not sure if Nikon has that, but that's a really nice feature on the Canons. I don't believe the 5D has it though.
Yeah, actually, when I first started to use Lightroom Live View on my D700, I think I asked Bob about this. At first, I couldn't zoom in all the way, and then when I did zoom in, I couldn't go edge to edge. So in Nikon, there's actually two options for Live View. There's handheld and there's tripod mode for Live View. If you have it on handheld mode, I believe it was, you can't zoom in all the way and get edge to edge while zoomed in. And I don't understand why they did it, but if you switch it to tripod mode, and I could have these reversed, so you got to double check. If
No, I think you got it right.
What was that?
I think you have it right.
Yeah, actually, here, let me, I'll tell you right now, actually. D700.
Here's one I prepared earlier.
What was that?
I said, here's one I prepared earlier.
I didn't know it was going to be show and tell. I didn't bring mine.
Live View. Okay, so let's see if I can get this.
Do you have live view on that, Bob?
This doesn't have live view.
No, it doesn't. So yeah, it is actually tripod mode will allow you to zoom in. I don't know what the percentage is, but it's really close, and it goes edge to edge completely. The difference being from watching, from seeing Brian's 5D Mark II, when he uses live view, he has a grid. The Nikon has a grid, but it's not really as
Grid-like.
As grid-like. Yeah, good word. It doesn't give you that much. It's very, very minimal. So
It gives you what, thirds?
yeah, I think that's all it does.
Yeah.
So the Canon grids with the live view are much better, and I think even the sharpness on the screen when you're using live view is better than the Nikon, because the Nikon gets very noisy. They must bump it up on the screen, the ISO or whatever on the screen. So
Yeah, the Nikon also has kind of a built-in level too. I don't know if you've noticed that.
yep, that does come in handy. I use the bubble level, but for the times where I've left it home for whatever reason, that does come in handy.
Yeah.
So that was a good question. Yeah. Anyone else have any questions or want to throw anything on the table? Like,
I don't think I've joined the live view camp quite as much as you guys have. It could be just because I don't have a tilt shift lens, or maybe I'm just a little old school where I still like the viewfinder. I think the most that I've used the live view mode was in Yellowstone this past summer. We were looking at some wolves, and there was a crowd behind us who didn't have binoculars, and I had a 400mm lens, so I put live view mode on so I could track it for the crowd, and that's probably the most I've used live view since I've had my 5D Mark II. I've experimented with like what Brian and Scott, what you guys do, and I just don't think it really works for me personally. So I guess to each their own.
I use it, I think, and I think Brian is the one who converted me to live view. I use it principally on tripod, and primarily because I stopped trying to do autofocus shooting HDR because I lose the focus. So I use it specifically to make sure I get that focus really sharp because my eyes are very, very old. Well, not very, very old, but older than yours, Pat, let's say.
You see, I think I might be in a different camp because I feel like...
How many different camps are you in?
Yeah, you're in a lot of camps.
I'm camping all over the place. I was in the Army, so I guess I'm just used to being outdoors. I think that the focus on the screen isn't quite as tack sharp as in the viewfinder. That's my experience.
I think you're right, but maybe it is just with the tilt shift lens. Maybe it's at least for me, it helps.
Pat, that could also be your viewfinder. You can adjust. There's a little dial on the side of that. You can adjust how sort of far that is in and out. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. I do have my diopter adjusted for my glasses, so it could help with how sharp the viewfinder is compared to the screen.
Yeah.
Speaking while you're on that topic, I didn't. I should write a blog post about this, but for Nikon users, for the D300 and up, the diopter can actually be removed, and
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you can remove this.
Something new in these things.
And I got a -3 adjustment, so it actually magnifies. I can now shoot through the viewfinder without wearing glasses, and my prescription's pretty bad. So, Nikon D300 users and up, you can remove it. You have to actually close the. You got to close the viewfinder, the little shade, and then you can twist off the diopter. Or the eyepiece, whatever you want to call it. So
somebody help him out.
I got nothing.
Yeah, that's a cool feature. It's too bad Canon doesn't have something like that.
Yeah,
because I find a lot with my glasses that when I go, since I'm not using live mode, when I go to take a photo, I'm more smashing my glasses into my face than I am, effectively getting a composition. So, maybe I should switch to live view mode just to save my face,
Actually, Pat, Nikon does have a couple of diopters. I just checked it out. I just bought the generic one because I was just tired of my nose just being up on the viewfinder. But looks like they've got a couple. They've got a negative and a positive, and
do they have them for Canon?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, Canon.
Oh, I thought you said Nikon. Sorry. Cool.
Sorry. Yeah.
Is that on BH?
I'm sure it is. I'm looking at Adorama camera right now.
All right. Cool.
Got at least a 0 and a -2. I'm sure they've got a +2 as well.
And
awesome.
And that's for the 5D Mark II?
That's going to fit on any of the. I think they're all standard. At least all the Canon bodies I've had, all the lenses, all the viewfinder ups are standard.
Nice. And I think Hoodman also has something. It's not a magnifier, but they have a nice thing for eyes.
It's garbage.
Is it?
Yeah, because it blocks the LCD. So if I got one and I returned it.
Which one is fine?
It's I'd have to look up the model, but it's like this enlarged eyepiece, so it really covers your entire socket, and it kind of almost goes around the outside of your. You can swivel it if you're left or right hand eyed, and but it's
called
so large.
It's called the Hood Eye Cup, and yeah, it definitely wouldn't work with glasses.
But Hoodman also has glasses.
They do have glasses, which look, if you ask me, they look pretty silly.
Yes, they do. You can flip them up.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I was going to bring up was the Hoodman Loop, which actually goes over your viewfinder.
Yep.
And I just purchased one over the summer. I was doing a lot of family portraits outside, and I'm not going to look at my LCD, but I definitely like looking at my histogram and making sure I'm where I need to be. and that really helped out. You don't want to hook it up. You actually hold your camera body up, and you put the loop on there, so just hangs around your neck. Makes you look professional. Turns on the ladies.
I know that
Very easily amused ladies.
for the video people, Zacuto came out with. They have a similar product, except it has a mount that you an adhesive mount that goes around the LCD, and so so imagine if the hood and loop can actually snap onto the back of the LCD and stay there. You don't have to hold it. And then there's another company, I can't remember, some European company, I think, and it's pretty pricey. But my colleague on one, he let me use it at Imaging USA, and it's really awesome. Like it basically turns your live view into a viewfinder for all intents and purposes. You instead of looking at a screen, you're looking through this thing, and you're seeing your big 3-inch LCD, which is really nice.
Yeah, that sounds like the Hoodman loop that John was describing.
Right, but the loop you have to hold against. You have to physically press it against your LCD.
Oh, I see. Yep.
This has a mount that.
I'm looking at their site now. They have a little L-shaped piece of plastic for $100 that will make the Hoodman loop a attachment.
Yeah, no thanks.
Any way they can get $1 out of you.
Try and get some gaffer tape. That actually works well. And just tape it on the side of the camera.
Tape it all the way around the camera.
Yeah.
No residue.
No.
But
who was gonna say something?
No, I was going to say, as always with live view, you know, there are trade-offs. For me, I use live view 99% of the time, but you are killing your battery. So
True.
it's really important to have your spares, and a lot of times it's just a matter of turning the live view off. Like a lot of times, if I'm shooting with Bob or Pat or Jacob or Scott, when you walk from place to place. It's as simple as hitting a button, but if you don't turn it off, it's just on there and it's burning through your battery. So I'll get an average about maybe 90 minutes to 2 hours of solid shooting. You don't continuous shooting with the live view on, so it's a trade-off. But I wouldn't trade it off. I've never had a problem with with Canon the 5D2. You could zoom in by 2 factors. I think it's a 2-time or a 5-time and a 10-time.
Yeah.
And it's pretty damn accurate in terms of getting your sharpness, and that there's also there are a lot of things that it could be in terms of you can do micro adjustments with your camera and your lens. The lens might need to be optimized as well. So I wouldn't necessarily blame soft focus on live view. I would first look at the lenses just to make sure that they're actually optimized. You could send your lenses to Canon or Nikon to get them.
There's all the new digital SLRs now have micro adjustments.
Yeah.
So really, we could you could go out and buy the
I know what you're talking about. I can't remember the name of it. That Target thing.
Yeah, the Target. And Spider, they just ripped it off.
You know what? Screw them. I can't stand those guys because they totally ripped off the color checker passport too.
Yeah, they did. They're definitely ripping off way too many companies now. What is the name of that? Lens Cow, maybe? Was it Lens Cow? It's made by the people who make the Wii Cow, the little white color checker, the little gray card.
Focus Target. It's Lensalign Pro.
Lensalign Pro, yeah. When I was at Mac, we had those to do, the quick micro adjustments for customers, and it is really convenient. You can set it up anywhere. You need maybe 10 feet depending on your lens, but you can pretty much adjust any lens that you need without having to send it away, unless it is actually a problem with your lens or camera. But if it's a micro adjustment, you can get that tool for I think $50 or so, and the Pro one I think is $100. So it's
180.
So it's not terribly expensive, but if you're going to be, really, really using your equipment to knock the micro adjustments off, then it could be worth it.
I always wanted to kind of get at least people who are local, just pool in money, buy it, and we just get together for a day and just
right.
have a I'm gonna hate myself for saying it like a focus party.
Woo woo.
Let me sign right up for that.
I'm
Shut
fine.
up.
There's a lot of things that would be good to, group by, and then just, everyone get together and do. There's so many different things that could work for, and that is one of them. But some things are just too expensive. But the consumer level one isn't so bad.
It's just Pat's got this really weird smile on his face. I'm wondering.
I'm
what
just
he's actually
laughing.
thinking.
I'm laughing at focus party.
His imagination is going off on him.
Everyone who wears glasses has to show up to the party without glasses, and everyone who doesn't has to show up with glasses. So everything's blurry for everybody.
So back to viewfinders. What I use it for is mostly composition, and when I'll turn it on, compose my image using live view, and then turn it off and just shoot without it, because like the Nikon live view, like shooting with live view, I find actually really clunky and unintuitive. I don't like it. So I'll flip back to like continuous high, and I'll shoot on that. I also find it really handy if I'm positioning the camera on the tripod really, really low to the ground, or 2 feet above my head on the tripod, that I can't actually see through the viewfinder easily. I'll turn live view on so I can just look down at it or look up, and then I'll be able to just sort of see the composition from there.
Yeah,
It is something I wish that they had was an articulating LCD on the higher end cameras.
Yeah.
That'll just be one more thing to break. I think it would snap off and then you'd lose it completely. I like it.
I
There
don't
it
know.
is. The screens also get a little smaller when you do that too, because they need to be like enclosed. Nikon did do one.
The D7000, maybe?
Yeah,
Or the 5000?
it's one of the newer ones has it.
It's
Yeah.
5,000, not the 7,000.
5000, not the 7000.
Right.
Canons are doing it on their lower end models.
I find the older I get, the more I want that feature, especially when
No,
you're
I'm
working
with
down
you.
low.
Oh, yeah.
I'm totally with you.
I agree.
It's very cumbersome.
All right, well, I think that was a really good discussion for the first episode of Talk Imagery Podcast. Let's hope that it recorded. And
Oh, I was supposed to hit that little button, wasn't I?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
We've tried, for everyone who's watching, we've tried to record episode 1, and we've been having technical difficulties. So we planned a strategy, and hopefully this is working out. And if it is, you're watching it right now. So that's a good sign. But we all get the thumbs up.
I was saying that my video is sort of locked up, so we'll edit that bit out from my copy.
It's okay. It's expected that the way we're doing these recordings, it's not your typical podcast. We have we can have up to 10 people video chatting at once, so we're gonna expect to have some lag, some voices that are off from the video, things like that. But it's expected, and I think this went really well, and I'm really looking forward to episode 2 and so on and so forth. So whoever's watching, please comment. Tell us what topic you would like us to talk about, and we'll try to make it happen. So leave your comments below in the blog post, and thanks for watching. And that's about it.